Welcome to Pioneer Sports Roundtable. I'm Luke, your moderator. Joining us are Emmanuel and Jake Doherty. Jake, Emmanuel, there's been a lot to talk about in sports the past couple of weeks, of course, with the Super Bowl and other things. But let's start off with the NBA All-Stars, where Team Shaq and the OGs pulled out the victory.
Yeah, it was an exciting week for basketball. You had the All-Star game this weekend and that entire competition. And, you know, the dunk contest, the three-point contest. Mac McClung getting his three-peat, winning the dunk contest this weekend. The only three-peat in sports this week because the Chiefs, as most people probably know, fell short to the Eagles. But the All-Star game itself was fun. I enjoy watching it. I think it's fun most of the time. It's better than the Pro Bowl for sure. I don't know how the NFL wants to handle that, but I enjoy watching the All-Star game.
Yeah, the NFL's definitely got to fix that. Back to the All-Star game, this was the first time of the format. They had four different teams. They had Team Candace and the Rising Stars, Team Kenny, and I forget what I think his was the rookie team. Team Chuck, Charles Barkley, his was the Global Stars, and Team Shaq was the OG Stars. How do you like this format compared to previous years where it was, you know, East versus West, and they had LeBron versus, LeBron versus Curry's team, and different teams like that? How do you like this format compared to the others?
I think 4 teams can be a lot to keep up with. I only watched the Shaq versus Chuck. I didn't watch the Candace and Kenny, I think you said. I didn't watch that one. So I guess maybe it's not too much to keep up with, but for people who really like watching basketball, I think that they would enjoy it. And I don't think it's a horrible thing. It adds to the weekend for sure.
Absolutely. Now, we talked a lot about pro basketball. Emmanuel, you were telling us something this weekend that we found pretty impressive about college basketball.
Oh, yeah. So basically, last weekend it was MTSU Blue Raiders against the WKU Hilltoppers, and speaking of which, last weekend it was men's basketball against the Blue Raiders and the Hilltoppers in WKU last weekend, and believe it or not, the Blue Raiders once again made a win against the Hilltoppers, with the final score being 67-57.
That's pretty impressive. You said it was their coach's 100th win as well.
Yeah.
And just in 7 short years. That's very impressive. And a lot of more college basketball coming up because that's going to be the main thing as the NFL's sort of winding down. The NBA, it's still in full force, but college basketball is really starting to kick up as we're approaching March. And another thing I want to talk to you guys about is I have a question. Mm-hmm. So out of the 3 combat sports, mixed martial arts, wrestling, and boxing, I want you guys to rank them from the most competitive and the hardest to get into to the one where you think the everyday average Joe could potentially go out there and compete. Now, I'm going to let you two think about it because I've already thought about it, and here's my ranking for those 3. I think by far the hardest combat sport to get into is definitely mixed martial arts. You know, you have elbows, knees, punches, and kicks, and it's all form of wrestling, boxing, and every fighting technique across the world. Now, the interesting debate is which one's more difficult. Wrestling or boxing? I think it's definitely a tricky debate because I think you take more damage in boxing. You know, I think it's more dangerous to be a boxer than a wrestler. But whenever it comes to technique and some of the best in the world, I think wrestling is truly probably one of the hardest subgenres of combat sports to get into. What do you guys think?
Well, for me, I feel like the one thing I could agree on is probably wrestling because I mean, there's a lot of work you got to do in terms of your arms, legs, etc. I do also while boxing on the other hand, wrestling on the other hand, wrestling you're just basically stretching out your arm and battling with someone else, kind of in a way.
I think if I had to rank them, I would definitely put mixed martial arts at number 1. I think if you watch the UFC and some of those other, fighting type sports and you look at the injuries and everything and some of the crazy finishes, I think the UFC definitely takes number 1. When it comes to boxing and wrestling, I think a lot of people would probably put wrestling at number 3. considering the fact that a lot of wrestling is played out and, like scripted. So not to say that what they're doing isn't very physically demanding or anything like that, because I love watching wrestling as far as WWE goes. But I think I would put boxing at number 2 and put wrestling at 3, but I definitely think you could argue switching boxing and wrestling. I think it just comes down to the physical demand and what type of wrestling you're talking about.
Well, you mentioned WWE, and this is like Christmas time for WWE. It's the road to WrestleMania. The Royal Rumble just wrapped up February with the Women's Royal Rumble being Charlotte Flair coming back and winning again, the first ever 2-time Women's Royal Rumble champion. And then in the Men's Royal Rumble, it was a fascinating one. You had the biggest stars in wrestling. You had CM Punk, Drew McIntyre, Seth Rollins, many others, John Cena. But the ultimate winner was main event Jey Uso, who is definitely, despite what The Rock might think, the most electrifying star in wrestling right now. Now, he's already chosen Gunther for his title shot at WrestleMania. Now, here's the interesting thing. The Elimination Chamber is 2 weeks from Saturday. Who do you guys think is going to win the Elimination Chamber? Right now, the competitors so far in it are Logan Paul, CM Punk, John Cena, Damian Priest, and Drew McIntyre. And most likely, Seth Rollins is going to be the 6th one.
I'm not going to lie. I think that it's hard with this being John Cena's last year. It's easy to get caught up in the trope of just hand Cena everything so he can win and go to WrestleMania and win the 17th. But I don't think it's going to be that easy for him. I think that he lost the Royal Rumble. People really weren't happy about that. I don't think they're going to be happy when he loses the Chamber again either. I would love to see CM Punk or Seth Rollins win that and go on to main event WrestleMania against Cody Rhodes. I think that would make a really good show. And I'm excited to see where they go with it.
So as for me, I feel like John Cena, who was like the longest running wrestler as far as I know, I think that he's probably going to win this one, because seeing how much of a legend he is and how much of a wrestler he is for the past couple years, I feel like he might have potential to win this year's when he probably lost, but he's probably going to get himself back up.
Yeah.
See, I think Logan Paul, I don't think he's ready yet. I don't think he's ready for a title yet. I think Seth Rollins and CM Punk are going to figure out a way to eliminate each other and cost them both a shot. And in my opinion, it's going to come down to Drew McIntyre and John Cena. And out of those two, I think Drew McIntyre is the deserving winner. Drew McIntyre's won the Rumble before. He's won the Elimination Chamber twice, but he's never had that WrestleMania moment. At WrestleMania 36, he won the title, but it was in a COVID year in front of no fans. And then last year, he beat Seth Rollins at WrestleMania, won the world title. Just for a minute later, literally 1 minute later, Damian Priest to cash in his Money in the Bank and steal his WrestleMania moment. But no doubt it's going to be an exciting one to watch. Now, for our last topic today, let's discuss the Super Bowl. Were you guys pleased with the result? Let's talk about the score, the teams that won, and let's also talk about the halftime show.
I would say I was pleased with the result, yeah. I'm not a huge Kansas City fan. My loyalties reside in Buffalo. So I obviously wasn't happy with the way Buffalo's season ended. Was pretty happy with the way Kansas City season ended. I love Saquon Barkley. He's been a great player to watch throughout college, going to the NFL, and despite playing for the Giants, who aren't the best organization to play for right now, still putting up really good numbers for them, then going to a really good fundamental team in the Philadelphia Eagles, winning that Super Bowl, winning Offensive Player of the Year, having the second most rushing yards of all time for a running back. I think he deserved it. I think they both deserved it. Jalen Hurts is a good quarterback. He's kind of overhated, but yeah, I was happy with it, and it was exciting to watch. Very high scoring and explosive for Philadelphia at least.
So for me, when I watched last weekend's Super Bowl, I was kind of actually impressed here because here's the thing. So basically, the Chiefs were actually were barely close to winning here against the Eagles, but after a lot more wins, the Eagles have finally made their win against the Chiefs. And I have to admit, it was too bad for the Chiefs because I feel like they were really close to winning. Like after like 2 or 3 Super Bowls of having a good streak, I feel like this one was probably the start of downfall for them.
Yeah, people said it started the downfall. I'm, on the other hand, I was rooting for the Chiefs. I like Patrick Mahomes. I like Andy Reid. And really, I was ready to see the first three-peat, but mostly just because I'm a Titans fan, and anyone that messes up the Titans, I don't like, which means I don't like A.J. Brown, who plays for the Eagles. He, kind of threw a fit about getting paid for the Titans. Should we have paid him? Yes. Is the Titans' fault that he left? Yes. But still, that doesn't matter for me. I'm glad that there was the opportunity for the first three-peat in the NFL ever since Tom Brady's dynasty back in the day. But unfortunately, it did not go the way that I wanted. I'm Luke Carter. This is Emmanuel. This is Jake Doherty. And this is Pioneer Sports Roundtable. We'll see you next time.